we could give all of our panelists another round of applause, please. I think they did a great job. If I can have my staff collect any questions that are out there, and while they're doing that, I have one question. And I'm going to really direct this towards Mr. Brown and Ford Motor Company. Based on what we just heard from Philip, the consumer is going to have to help us balance the grid. And I'd like to hear your comments on how the automotive industry, through plug-in hybrids, can really service to help our power companies with their balancing problems.
Well, in that regard, I mean, just as I mentioned, is this on? We have partnered with utilities in order to determine how consumers will utilize their plug-in hybrid vehicles. When will they plug them in? What will be the charge level of the battery when they do so? Okay. What are they looking for in terms of a recharging rate? Okay. In other words, how fast can you recharge the batteries? Okay. And then how often will they be required to provide power to the grid? All of that is under study. Why is that under study? Well, that helps define the battery requirements in terms of the specific power and average power that will be required, okay, in addition to the type of drive patterns that the consumer would be using with that particular product. So in that regard, we are still in a, let's call it, research phase, trying to gain insight and understanding what will be the specifications from a design perspective that the OEMs, automotive manufacturers, will be required to provide versus what will be the roles and responsibilities of the utilities, as well as what can we expect in terms of behavior from the consumer. So hopefully that answers you.
Yeah, very good. Thank you. Looks like I have one here from my good friend Doug Lynn. How would you address water evaporation and contamination possibilities with algae cultivation in open raceway ponds?
Water evaporation is something that we've simply got to address. You know, water is the new gold standard in the West. I'm very cognizant of that. In fact, I've got my oldest son's in law school studying to be a water attorney. But the water evaporation in southeast New Mexico is 70 inches a year. Now, if you saturate that media with algae, you're going to reduce that evaporation, but you're still going to have a lot of it. So that's one of the reasons why we really want to investigate those other sources, those waste stream waters, effluent waters, and we are conducting research at the present time to mitigate evaporation. So evaporation is definitely something that we're all going to have to address. As far as cross-contamination issues are concerned, we are raising a wild strain of algae. There are a lot of companies out there that are looking at genetically modified organisms. There's a lot of debate about that, because if a genetically modified organism were to escape and get into one of our natural waterways. So how to isolate these organisms and keep the cultures relatively invader-free is a big issue. We've addressed some of those. We've actually solved quite a few when invaders do appear. We've got a good protocol and procedures in place to do just that. But these cross-contamination issues are a big deal, and the cultures we currently raise are wild brine algae. The resident algae in the near vicinity are freshwater algae, so therefore we're not seeing much problem with that. But we did get several invaders sooner than we thought that adapt to the saline environment.
Very good. And Michael Young, we have a question for you. How close are you to commercialization, and is there any competition?
We are in the process of selecting two partners. One is our so-called industrial sponsor, which is going to give us the venue to use their CO2 to do the demonstration. And the other ones are we are looking for another entity, either national lab or research institution could come out to measure and also validate the performance. And we're also in the process of applying for stimulus money to do the demonstration. or maybe going to the private sector to get some money. And the second question is
The competition.
competition. I Google Yahoo almost a couple of times a week, and I have not found anyone close to what we are doing. Obviously, just like I did before a couple of months ago, I would not even tell you what's going on. So I suspect maybe there's some potential competitions, but since we have already filed the patent application pretty early, I think we should be okay for now.
Very good. I'm going to combine two questions here, and I'm going to, since you did a great job on keeping us on time, I'm going to really give you two questions here at once. Why not use renewable energy to irrigate the Southwest? And also, why not a global electric grid like Buckminster Fuller envisioned? And then the second part of that question is, who pays? All of this has got to cost money. Where's it going to come from?
Well, you certainly could use renewables. I think there's a lot of renewables on irrigation starting to creep up. So probably people in this room know that a lot better than I do. As far as the grids, that's a really interesting question. I am an advisor to the Chinese and also in Europe, and helping Europe put together larger, more synchronized power grids. And there's one now working on now, a 500,000 megawatt grid, actually making a loop around the entire Mediterranean Sea. The difficulty you have is, again, you're operating to the same frequency, and you've got to keep everybody working together. It's a speed of light product. It's either on or it's off. And so determining those rules and protocols and procedures, then how do you do that with organized markets? It's actually simpler in China and Europe than it is in the U.S. With the multiple jurisdictions in the U.S., the many different companies you have in the U.S., it's very difficult to get a consensus. For the mathematicians in this room, do the permutation and commutations. You got 50 states, 4,000 different companies, 8 different reliability councils. Now, how many people do you have can make a decision on even the simplest of things? So it's very difficult to agree to a technical solution in that kind of an environment. But it is happening. It's happening in China, and it is happening in Europe. You even now have the Russians looking at how they can come into using locational marginal cost pricing, work with Scandinavia. You've got the Scandinavian market now integrating with the Italian market, and the Belgium, Netherlands, and Luxembourg market, again, with England. So it is moving and it is starting to happen.
Great. I'm going to take one last question, and it looks like this question's for me. It says, will the PowerPoints be available on the website, and how about videos or DVDs? And the answer is yes. All these presentations, we'll get them from the speakers and put them up on the website. And on the website, there'll also be streaming video for a number of the presentations. You'll be able to click on them. If you go to the website right now, there's a number of videos from last year's presentation, so they'll be up. And then the second part of this question is, as well as energy, Lee County has the potential for reclaiming millions of barrels of produced water. Will this be a topic of discussion for the New Mexico Center for Energy Policy? At the end of the day, I'm going to talk about our future programs, and yes, indeed, water and energy are going to be one of the things that we'll have one of these types of conferences on. So with that, let's give another round of applause to our presenters.